Okay, thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation. So, I guess Riley did okay last time, so they invited us back, Riley, so not too bad. So, okay, so I'll be talking about the water outlook. I wanted to talk a little bit before I talk about the outlook, a couple of projects that we've been doing in the basin to help with some of the flood control issues that we've seen. I know Riley last time talked about flood control and all the different elements that Weber Basin and the agencies that we work with. Obviously, 2023 was a huge year, record-setting, and then 24, not nearly as large, but still a great water year. And this water year didn't start out too hot. It started out really slow. I mean, the late fall, late summer, early fall was so dry here in Utah. And so because of that, our soil moistures were really low coming into this water season. And so that really impacts the runoff and how the runoff comes off. And so because of that, I'll get into a couple of slides that show that, but we were really nervous because our soil moisture was so low, and that dramatically impacts how the runoff comes off the next spring. But I'll show a couple slides that update that here. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about Weber Basin. I think most everybody's familiar with what we do. But we are the local sponsor of the Bureau project that was built back in the 50s and the 60s. We essentially administer the Bureau project, and we've built facilities on top of that since the original project was built that are district facilities. Most of those facilities are for drinking water, to treat our water to drinking water standards, and we're the large drinking water purveyor in northern Utah for drinking water. So that's a big component of what we do, in addition to all the other water deliveries that we make. Also, drought's a huge issue that we dealt with in the early 2020 timeframe through 2022. That was a huge issue for us. I know folks were not happy about the cuts that we had to make in 2022. We actually cut drinking water 10%. We cut ag 30%, and then we cut just outdoor irrigation 40%. So all of our contracts we actually cut. And when you cut drinking water, things are getting pretty dire. Unless those spring rains came in 2022, we were basically going to not turn on outdoor irrigation in March of that year because things looked so dire. But then we had those spring rains come, which really helped out the situation. And then we felt like, okay, we could go ahead and turn things on. But it was looking really bad. We actually brought pumps in, portable pumps, and actually pumped additional water out of Willard Bay into the canal to service needs in late summer because we could not get enough water out of Willard Bay with the large pumps that we have there now. So pretty dire back then. But anyway, and then we protect against excess spring flows, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We do service 5 counties, 2,800 square miles, 750,000 residents in this area. And then 50 plus cities and districts we serve with drinking water. And so that's a big part of what we do. All the EPA standards that we have to adhere to with all of our drinking water supplies. It's just continual. And then the fluoride issue is out there right now, gaining some steam. I know there's a bill right now that's trying to remove fluoride from the water. And there's been a lot of discussion over that the last 2-3 months as additional studies have come out. And I won't get into the details of that necessarily in this presentation, but that's a big issue. And I think that will be debated in the legislature now that we have this bill that's come out. And I know there's a lot of people on both sides of the fluoride issue, a lot of pros and cons, but there's just a lot of, in terms of delivering this water with fluoride in it, there's a lot of issues just for our operators that have to work around this acid and put this into the water. And the concerns of an overfeed is always on our mind. And we've had some overfeeds here because we rely on mechanical equipment to do its job, and sometimes mechanical equipment fail. Despite all of our safeguards, everything we try to do, there are some failures in mechanical equipment. So that's always a huge concern from the water district because we definitely don't want to have an overfeed and have an issue that way. I've kind of talked a lot about just the different water supplies. We also deliver industrial water to customers as well. The big refineries on the south end of Davis County, we deliver water to, both drinking and raw water. 500 miles of pipelines and canals, 21 deep groundwater wells. We've actually here recently had to shut the aqueduct down that feeds, both aqueducts that feed both Davis and Weber County. The large project that we're doing there along Highway 89, I'm sure you've all seen that large project. Whitaker actually had to tie into our bifurcation structure up there. It's the structure that receives the water as it goes through the mountain. There's a 3.3 mile tunnel, 9 foot in diameter, takes that water through the mountain. It bifurcates there, splits, goes into Weber County North, Davis County South. Whitaker had to tie into that structure with this large project that they're doing. And also we had some leaks along the aqueduct. The aqueduct, 84-inch diameter in that area. It's concrete bell and spicketed pipe. So the pipe itself is doing very well. It's anything the Bureau built back in the 50s and 60s was very robust, but the gaskets are rubber gaskets, bell and spigot, and those gaskets are deteriorating. They are failing. And so that rubber over time hardens, and so if there's any slight movement at all in that aqueduct, that rubber gasket is not able to be malleable anymore and take up that space if there is some movement. So then you have a leak starting. And so most of our leaks have been down in the Bountiful area on the aqueduct. But here recently, we've actually had several leaks show up in the Davis County area, kind of above the Job Corps. And so that's a huge concern for us. So anyway, our groundwater wells supplied all of our water necessary here for our drinking water supplies for about 3 weeks. We had the aqueduct shut off. We went in, did some repairs on the aqueduct, as well as Whitaker did their work. So those are hugely important for us. In fact, we're going to shut the aqueduct down again here just next week. Anytime you shut the aqueduct down and you take the pressure off, when you put pressure back to the aqueduct and you fill it up again, there can be slight movements in those big, these are 84-inch, 6-inch thick pipe barrels is how big this pipe is. When you load it again, you cause some movement as well, because that's a lot of water that you're filling that aqueduct with. It can make that pipe move a little again, and then it pops another gasket. So you're almost chasing your tail here. And so that's a concern for us, because we had another leak pop up after we loaded it here just a few weeks ago. So here we go again, shut it down. We've got 3 hydroelectric power plants that we operate that really helps keep our water rates low, because it's extremely inexpensive power that we generate with. We have 8 megawatts that we have on our system, and so that's very helpful to our customers. And then we have 7 major dams as well that we operate. So that's our system. Those are all of our reservoirs. I think most of you are familiar with all those reservoirs. I might just point out, Willard Bay is the big bathtub at the bottom end that catches everything. It's off stream. It's an extremely important reservoir. We pump out of that reservoir during the summer. We pump back to the south, and that delivers a lot of necessary ag deliveries that we need during the summer. And then in a drought scenario, Willard Bay is extremely important to be able to pump water out of that facility. And then we have all of our upstream reservoirs. I mentioned flood control. Riley covered this last year. I won't go into a lot of detail, but essentially what we're trying to do is make strategic releases so that the reservoir can catch the large flows and that the reservoir continues to catch these large incoming flows until the releases coming out are less than the incoming flows that are coming in. So they basically equal each other or are less than the safe channel capacity down below. So there's 2023 was a really tough year to manage because we had so much snowpack. And so a lot of sleepless nights for Weber Basin employees, especially Riley. A lot of sleepless nights to manage that. But yeah, he did an amazing job, and we tried to minimize flooding as much as possible. The lower Weber always has issues when we have a big water year of flooding. And so I want to just talk about a project that we are currently working on and have been working on. In fact, we just finished up phase 9. I've highlighted here phase 7 and 8 of the Willard Canal lining project. This is just north of Toad's Golf Course there on 400, if you can see that. And then you've got I-15 there, just kind of in the middle. Willard Canal crosses I-15. So 7 and 8, we did those previously. And then just west of I-15 was the project we just completed a few weeks ago. So we are lining the Willard Canal here, and we're basically doubling the capacity of the canal, just going from clay liner to a concrete liner, pretty much keeping the same trapezoidal channel that the canal has, but just by lining it with concrete, we're able to go from 1,000 CFS to 2,000 CFS. So we can take, when we're done with this project, we'll be able to take 2,000 CFS down the Willard Canal and minimize flows on the lower Weber, which typically has issues with flooding. Right now, we can just take 1,000 CFS. And so that's what the Willard Canal looks like with just the clay liner in it. You can see there's, then there's deposition of material through there as well on top of the clay liner. So we have to get rid of all that material that's deposited on top. And then we start and go in and start working those slopes and getting them ready for concrete. So it's a big major project to go in. We can only shut the Willard Canal down for so long because we're trying to catch as much flow as we can and shepherd that out to Willard Bay. So we've got about 2 to 3 months that we can actually shut it down and not lose water that we could otherwise capture. So there's a small window, and that's why we have to work within this type of window. You can see how massive the canal is and that project is. They have to do a checkerboard pattern there as they lay those panels in there. And it's a big effort for about 3 months in basically late fall, early winter that we can do this project. Another project I just want to talk about is I found this old photo. This is the old diversion off of the Weber River. This is the Willard Canal. There's that, it's a bar structure, screening structure you can see there. And it was, flow was going, towards the Slaterville diversion structure. And so that diversion structure, it's basically, straight into the flow, perpendicular to the flow. So anything that was coming down the river was basically getting stuck on that trash rack. And so we had to have guys out there constantly, manually raking that structure out there. And it just got so difficult to try to keep that open. We would regularly have to backflush that facility, basically shut down the canal, take the pressure and force off it, back flush it, and then we'd lose like 24 hours. So then we're sending the whole river down, down the river channel and flooding out farmers even worse than where we were before. And so what we did is we built a new diversion structure off of the Weber River to replace that old structure. This thing is huge. You can kind of see there on the backside. We've got these huge bar screens now. This kind of, the big logs, trees that come through, they can't get through these bar screens, so we try to keep that going down the river as much as we can. We can put a big track hoe up on top here and push, trees that get stuck on here. But this is at least parallel to the flow now. It's not perpendicular. So this is parallel to the flow. We don't have any bar screens now that are perpendicular. And so this makes it much easier to push the debris downstream and to try to keep as much water flowing through. So that's the bar screen there you can see on the left. Then we have the finer screen materials that are leaning up here. We have automatic rakes now that rake, those rakes that are kind of leaning up on its edge right there. We have automatic rakes that rake that. It's finer material that get through there. And then there's a conveyor on the backside. This picture was prior to having that installed. But there's a conveyor that catches all that material, and we're able to congregate that material and then remove it. But this enables us to eventually take the 2,000 CFS that we're hoping to take once we finish the lining project on the canal. So these projects are both in concert with each other. That's kind of the finished portion there. The portion on the right juts out into the river. There's no bar screens there. But then that section to the left that's parallel to us, that's where those huge bar screens are. And it's parallel to the flow, so it's made it so much nicer for us. So with that, those are just a couple of projects that we've done to really improve flood control on the Weber River. But I want to talk about our storage now on our outlook here. You can see the black line is 2024, the red is 23, and then the average is the blue dotted line. So you can see Kazi's a very small reservoir. It's not a flood control reservoir. It's the paddleboarding capital of the world, though. If you go up there and on the weekend or on a holiday, don't go up there on a holiday. It is not a good place. I went up there with my kids, and as far as I had to park from that place and walk, it was just, we just gave up. So I think social media really has made it, if someone finds something good, it gets out immediately, right? And everybody else jumps on board. So anyway, I avoid that on the weekends, though, for sure. Pine View, you can see, is doing well. We're quite a bit above the average. So we got about 80,000 acre feet in Pine View. So looking really well there. Wanship, Rockport, we're basically on the average there. Echo is a little bit above average, and so not quite 2023 levels, but we're doing good. We operate those in conjunction with each other, so sometimes it can be a little bit misleading where we're storing that water, whether it's Echo or Wanship, whether it's Weber Basin water or Weber River water users. We operate those together, so it can be a little confusing at times whose water is where there. Lost Creek, you can see we're doing well, above the average, and East Canyon also doing well. So again, we had good storage going into the winter, and we've started to increase ever since we shut the deliveries off. And then there's Willard Bay on the bottom end. You can see we're doing excellent there, almost 2023 levels. And so Willard Bay is looking really good. Got a lot of water out there right now. So that's very positive. And then here's the soil moisture that I was talking about. You've got the black line there, 2025. You can see how dismal that was until we had the storms here recently. And I thought, typically as we go into winter and most of the ground freezes up there, you typically don't see very high changes on soil moisture because everything's frozen. But you can see we are seeing an increase there through the holiday season and after January 1st. And so we were 60% of normal. Now we're about 80% of normal. So we are seeing that soil moisture come up, which is actually very beneficial. I mean, not anywhere near where we were in 23 and 24 and not close to the median, but still that's very positive as far as how the runoff's going to come off next spring. And then I think this is my last slide. Here's our snow water equivalent. You can see how dismal things were there in the black on 2025. It basically flatlined there through November and December. And you can see the dramatic increase we had through the holiday season. I know any skiers out there, I was talking to Candace right before, definitely enjoyed the holiday season as this snow came. And so things are definitely looking up. We're 114% of the median right now on our snow water equivalent, and above where we were in 2024 for this time. We want to see that continue, but I know things are looking a little dry the next week or so. And what's the forecast moving forward? Nobody knows. I mean, Brian McInerney may have had an idea, when he would get up and do his show, and it's very good, what he would present. But as I've been around 26 years now doing this, nobody really knows outside of 7 to 10 days what's going to happen. I know they do their best and they have all the models and everything, but I've never seen anybody that can accurately portray what's going to happen outside of 10 days. So it's anybody's guess what's going to happen 10 days out. But it's looking a little dry the next 7 to 10 days, it appears. Maybe a little something over the weekend, but, we just continue to hope and pray for moisture. So with that, thank you. Appreciate it.